Hi, Elizabeth here again. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about phase wrappers, which are these beautiful over-engineered envelopes that we use to hold and care for some of the rare books in our library. So phase wrapper, as you can see, is sort of a combination of a book cover and a box. So what it does is it helps support fragile bound items, so books with breaking spines, and also just helps keep dust and light and handling damage to a minimum for the book itself. So the wrapper, as you can see, it neatly fits over the book, and it can open up while minimizing handling onto the book itself, allowing us access to what is in this case an 1891 Tacoma City directory. So this is a phone book from before people had telephones. So the supplies that we use for making phase wrappers are some acid-free archival paperboard. This is a lightweight, I think it's about a 20. And then we also are going to need some adhesive. I like to use a pH-neutral bookbinding glue, scissors, ruler and pencil for marking. We're going to need a fastener for the phase wrapper. I like to use these little Velcro dots that are really easy. And then if you have it, a bone folder is useful for making the creases. If not, you can just use your hand or a ruler. So when we make phase wrappers, we make them specific to a given book. In this case, our model book's going to be a 1918 Tacoma directory, which didn't already have a phase wrapper because its binding's actually in pretty good shape. So we're going to start by doing a lot of measurements. So I'm not sure if you noticed from our previous look at the phase wrapper, what we essentially have are two pieces that are laid into the form of a big plus sign, one of which needs to wrap all the way around the book from the side, and the other which is going to need to go over the top. So I'm going to start by measuring that sideways piece. And for the book, what we're going to need to make sure is that the length of the book is the length of our piece of paper. I guess width, since that's going to be the narrower measure. Usually like to give about 1/8 of an inch margin. So in this case, our book is measuring out to about 9 1/4. So we're going to be cutting this about 9 1/2. And then in the other direction, the length of our piece is going to need to be the sum of the depth of the book's spine across the front of the book, depth of the spine on the other side, across on the back, and then a tiny bit of overlap to the front. So that's going to be about 2.5 times 6 1/4 plus 2 times 1 1/8. So we're going to want to measure that on our paper, and hopefully Jessica will edit some of this out so that it doesn't take as long. In addition to measuring the overall length, I'm going to want to be marking the widths for my overlap, the first bookcase depth, the distance across the back, the second bookcase depth, distance across the front, plus overlap. And so what we're going to then be doing is, once we've measured this, we're going to cut our paper, make sure both tops and bottoms are marked for each of those lines, which are then going to become a fold line, so that the paper itself is going to wrap nicely around the book. So once we've measured our desired length, we're going to cut our board. Say board, but this is honestly feels more like a very glorified paper. Okay, so once we've got our paper cut to fit, we're going to need to measure for our creases. So in this case with the book, we've got 6 1/4 across the covers. So we're going to measure 6 1/2, giving it that little 1/8 of an inch on either side. Then 2 1/4 depth, so we measure 2 1/2 distance for the spine, same for the back, same for the spine, and then we'll have just a little extra hangover so that we can close the flap at the front. When doing these measures, to try and keep them as straight as possible, which is not easy, despite it all being right angles, I usually like to measure twice. So we'll measure from the end along the top and along the bottom, and then join those two lines together. And that will hopefully give us relatively straight lines, or else just, teach us the fun maxim that all crafters know, that you can not actually count to 2. So once we've marked the lines, I like to pencil them in to get them really precise. Now we get to fold them. And so we're going to want to do, you can do this over the edge of the table. can give you a nice crease. I like to do it with a bone folder. I'm just sort of starting the crease where I can see it. And then once I've got that started, I'm going to use the bone folder on top. And this is the part where you say you can be smoothing it with your finger or with your ruler. But anyway, that gives it that nice sharp crease. You then get to repeat along each of our fold lines. So that's the first half of our phase wrapper. We can check the fit with our directory. So here we are, 1918 directory. Sitting down on the back. We're going to have the one side fold up and over, other side fold up and over, and they overlap at the top. So this is half our phase wrapper. We're then going to need to do the same thing with a second piece of board. A longer one than this, but we'll be making that cross piece. So we're going to have them perfectly overlapped on the back cover, and then this front piece is going to need to go up over the spine and then fold down to the front cover. Since everything's overlapping on the front cover, we don't need it to go the entire distance. We just need to have enough of a front cover overlap that we'll be able to attach the two pieces of the other cover. So let's get that cut out. So once we have our two pieces cut and creased, we're ready to glue them together. So to do this, we're just going to very carefully and without shaking the bottle too much, lightly glue over what's going to be the area where the back cover is. Definitely got too much glue in that corner. You just want to line it up. And then we're going to set this aside and let it dry. Okay. So once the two pieces are attached, your phase wrapper should look something like this rather chunky plus sign. It's a little lopsided. So then we can safely set our book down in it, double check for fit. And then we're going to put the fasteners on. So we're going to fold over that upper portion. And we're going to stick some Velcro dots on. So the first pair of dots are going to be to sort of hold these vertical flaps to the little cross overlap piece. So I like to set them pretty far in the corners of that piece, just for maximum coverage. So stick down one dot, put its opposite on, stick that, then down here. Doesn't really matter which side you do, but I always get paranoid and try and put the softer side facing towards the book so that if you ever start closing this out of order, you get the softer side, but it's not like these are horribly abrasive. So we can see how that first flap's working. And now to finish it, I'll have our little cover flap here, and again, just dots in each of the corners. And that is our complete phase wrapper. Open it up, we have full access to our book, and then we close it. Book just has a little bit of support and protection from the nasty big cruel world. To make it easier to tell which book is which, I recommend labeling it with pencil on the outside. Now our 1918 city directory is all ready to go back to its shelf or into its moving box, as the case may be. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will be back soon with more fun adventures from packing the Tacoma Historical Society for moving.